Michael Rourke turned onto the service road and froze. A paving crew was spreading black asphalt across his entire grass airstrip, and Jennifer Hawthorne stood in the middle, shouting orders like a general. Just yesterday, the strip had been a perfect grass runway, his Cessna parked beside the white FAA license sign, a lifeline for rural medical flights. Now, that sign was drowning in tar. Only the top of the letters remained visible. FAA licensed, a brutal irony smeared in black. The order had come from Jennifer weeks ago in the sterile HOA office. "Those planes are a nuisance," she had fumed, stabbing a finger at the noise log. "I will take care of it."
What the hell are you doing on my airfield?
Your airfield? That is an access road, Mr. Rourke. HOA improvement project.
That sign is an FAA-licensed airfield. You just destroyed federal property.
That tacky thing? Decorative. Pave it.
The foreman hesitated, then the asphalt roller lurched forward. The last visible metal vanished under a thick black smear. Michael fumbled for his phone, dialing the FAA regional office. A recorded voice answered. "You have reached an office that is currently closed." Jennifer climbed into her SUV and drove away, her smirk lingering in the dust. 3 years before the asphalt buried his runway, Michael Rourke had built that grass strip for one reason: to save lives. He was the only pilot for 100 miles willing to fly medical evacs at a moment's notice.
With this FAA license, your airfield is authorized for medical evacuation operations. Lives will depend on you, Mr. Rourke.
Over the next 2 years, critical cardiac patients, premature infants, and accident victims were airlifted straight to Denver hospitals. The roar of his Cessna became the sound of salvation.
That constant noise from Rourke's field is driving down property values. We have to do something about it.
It's not a hobby, Jennifer. It's an FAA-licensed medical airfield. I'm asking you to please understand.
I understand that my sleep is more important than your little planes. This ends now.
She wrote in her planner, "Rourke Airstrip, eliminate."
She'll never see the truth. But someday, maybe she'll have to.
That someday crashed into reality with the grinding of asphalt rollers and the smell of fresh tar. But when the full price of Jennifer's choice became clear, it would be more than anyone could imagine. 3 weeks before the asphalt poured, Jennifer Hawthorne had already arranged the paving under a false work order.
I need an immediate repave of the HOA access road on Old Mill Lane. Rush job? Can you start tomorrow?
She checked the forecast. A 3-day storm was moving in. Michael Rourke would be grounded. His Cessna stuck in Denver. Perfect.
"Ma'am, I've seen the plans. That's not an access road. That's a grass strip with an FAA sign. I'm not comfortable paving a runway."
Comfortable? You're paid to pave, not to think. I'm the HOA chair, and that field is an unauthorized nuisance. Pave it.
"But the FAA sign, that's federal, could get us in trouble."
The sign is decorative. My husband's a lawyer. If anyone complains, we'll handle it. Start the roller, or I'll find another contractor who will.
The foreman swallowed his objection and waved the crew forward. The asphalt truck rumbled onto the grass, and the first black wave spread across the runway like a stain. By the time Michael returned, his airstrip was a smooth, dark scar, and the FAA license was just a memory under tar. When Michael returned to the strip, the paving crew was gone, leaving a flawless black scar where his grass runway once grew. He pulled out his phone and started photographing every inch. He dialed the FAA regional office again. This time he left a detailed message: location, his license number, time-stamped GPS evidence of the destruction. Then he drove straight to Jennifer Hawthorne's house, a pristine colonial at the end of the cul-de-sac with a perfectly manicured lawn.
What do you want, Rourke? I'm busy.
You know exactly what I want. You deliberately paved my FAA-licensed airstrip and buried the sign.
I improved the access road for the HOA. You're just a nuisance. All those noise complaints? I was protecting this community. You're the problem.
The FAA won't ignore this. I've got pictures, records, and a license. You'll be hearing from them.
Get off my property before I call the sheriff for trespassing.
Michael walked back to his truck, but not before snapping one last photo. Jennifer standing in her doorway, arms crossed in defiance. At 11:42 p.m., Michael's phone shrieked with the alert he dreaded most: medical evac emergency, rural hospital.
His strip was gone. Every second he rerouted, that patient was dying.
The diversion added 40 miles and a critical 40-minute delay. The flight map recalculated a cruel new path. In the ambulance, a 67-year-old man's heart sputtered and stopped. Paramedics fought to revive him as the minutes bled away. The ER team paged Michael's incoming plane, but the patient coded for the last time 10 miles out.
Tower, did they?
A flat voice over the radio confirmed it. The patient was pronounced dead on arrival. Michael killed the engine and sat in silence. At the hospital, a weary physician found Linda Patterson in the family waiting room.
No, please, not my father. He was supposed to fly.
A life was lost because of paved over grass, and Michael carried that knowledge back through the cold night. At sunrise, a Navy windbreaker arrived at the blackened patch. FAA agent Donahue stepped out with a camera and a thick binder. She crouched beside the FAA sign, half buried in tar, and snapped photographs of the deliberate destruction.
Mr. Rourke, walk me through what happened here. From the moment you saw the crew.
Jennifer Hawthorne hired a paving crew, lied about it being an access road, and ordered them to pave my runway.
Donahue found Jennifer at her colonial pruning roses as if nothing had happened.
You ordered paving on an active FAA-licensed airfield. Did you know about the license?
I had no idea. That field was a nuisance. I was just doing what the HOA wanted. The noise.
The foreman says you called the sign decorative. That's a Title 49 federal offense.
Jennifer's composure cracked, but she recovered quickly. "I'm the victim of noise complaints," she said. Michael gave her the flight log. Diverted evac, 40-mile delay, 1 fatality. The federal case had teeth. Linda Patterson sat in a lawyer's office, a copy of the flight log trembling in her hands. The lawyer explained, "Your father's death was preventable. A paved-over runway caused the delay."
She paved the runway? On purpose?
That evening, Linda walked into the packed HOA meeting, her grief hardening into something razor-edged.
You killed my father. Your paving job forced that plane 40 miles away.
That's a tragedy, but it was an accident. I've never even heard of that man.
Accident? You buried an FAA sign and lied to the crew.
Murmurs spread through the room. Homeowners who once nodded along with Jennifer's noise complaints were now staring at her with dawning horror.
This is a private HOA matter. We follow procedures.
But the room had already shifted. Several neighbors stood and walked out, and a voice from the second row called for a vote of no confidence.
I'm filing a formal complaint with the FAA. This isn't over.
2 nights after the HOA meeting, Michael sat cross-referencing the flight manifest for his deposition. The deceased's name jumped off the page: Harold Hawthorne. Hawthorne, the same last name as Jennifer.
It can't be. How many Hawthorns are there?
He typed the name into a public records search. An obituary surfaced, survived by son Eric Hawthorne and daughter-in-law Jennifer. Eric Hawthorne, the lawyer Jennifer mentioned to the foreman. Her husband, Harold, was her father-in-law.
She killed her own family.
The room seemed to tilt. The irony was so brutal it felt like a weight pressing on his chest. He sat motionless, the FAA license on his screensaver a silent reminder of everything Jennifer had destroyed.
This changes everything. She doesn't know yet.
He closed the file and stared out the window, carrying a secret that would detonate the case.
Agent Donahue, there's something you need to see. Harold Hawthorne, the victim, he's Jennifer's father-in-law.
Verified it. Public records confirm it. She destroyed the runway that could have saved her own family.
Linda Patterson's lawyer broke the news to her in a quiet conference room. She broke down again. This time not just grief, but a terrible, angry understanding. By noon, a local news site ran the headline, "HOA chairs paving, kills her own father-in-law." The story spread like fire.
That's a lie. Harold would never. Eric, you have to believe me. I didn't know. I never checked. I never even asked his name. I killed him. Oh God, I killed Harold.
Outside her colonial, Reporters gathered like vultures. Cameras caught every tear when she finally stumbled out. She couldn't speak. Her face crumpled, and the image of the HOA queen shattered into 1,000 pieces. Inside, her husband packed a bag and walked out without a word. The case now had a truth no one could look away from. 3 days after the news broke, Agent Donahue knocked on Jennifer's door with a formal FAA notice of violation.
This is a formal Title 49 violation for willful destruction. The FAA is referring this for federal criminal prosecution.
That afternoon, the district attorney announced charges: reckless endangerment causing death. Jennifer stared at the television, her face blank. The HOA's insurance carrier voided the entire policy, citing intentional criminal acts. A letter arrived stamped in red, void. That night, the HOA board called an emergency meeting. The room was a storm of panic. Homeowners shouted for Jennifer's resignation. Without insurance, their properties were at risk of massive special assessments.
I was trying to improve this neighborhood. The planes were a nuisance.
She was cut off by a motion to remove her as chair. It passed without a single dissenting voice. Later, her defense lawyer laid out the grim picture. The trial would hinge on her deliberate disregard for the FAA sign. For the first time, Jennifer Hawthorne understood that her noise complaint campaign might end in a prison cell. A week before trial, Michael sat for his deposition in a sterile Denver conference room, his FAA license beside him.
I built that strip 3 years ago for medical evacs. The FAA licensed it specifically for life-saving flights.
He described the morning he found the asphalt, the buried sign, the foreman's hesitation, Jennifer's smug orders.
She called the FAA sign decorative. She told the foreman to pave it. She didn't care.
Then came the night of the evac. His voice thickened as he recounted the 40-mile diversion and the radio call.
I landed and they told me the patient had already died. I had to sit there knowing it was preventable.
The defense attorney leaned in and asked if he'd staged the damage to discredit the HOA.
Staged? I was in the air when the paving started. The weather delay kept me grounded. Jennifer knew that.
Jennifer's attorney shuffled papers, searching for any contradiction. There was none. The deposition transcript became a cornerstone of the prosecution's case. The defense knew they had nothing. In the days after Michael's deposition, Jennifer Hawthorne became a ghost on her own street. Neighbors crossed to the other side when she walked her driveway. Then came the divorce papers. Eric Hawthorne didn't even stay to argue. He simply handed her the envelope and left.
My own life is over. I can't survive a trial. Tell Rourke I'll pay him anything.
Her lawyer contacted Michael's team with a settlement offer, a 6-figure sum to drop the charges.
She thinks this is about money? A man is dead. Her own family. There's no price for that. Tell her I said no. Justice, not money.
The refusal reached Jennifer within the hour. Her last escape route closed.
I built walls around everyone. Now I'm the one trapped.
She looked around her empty living room, the silence broken only by the distant echo of a Cessna's engine. The trial was now inevitable, and so was the verdict. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with tension. The prosecution placed an enlarged photo of the half-buried FAA sign on an easel for the jury.
This photo shows a federally licensed airfield deliberately buried, the jury heard. The defendant knew exactly what she was doing. I told her repeatedly that the strip was FAA licensed. She called it decorative and ordered the foreman to pave it. That night a patient died because I had no runway, and I learned later that patient was her own family.
She pointed to the grass field and said the sign was decorative. I was told to pave it. I didn't realize it was an active runway.
Willful destruction of an FAA-licensed airfield is a Title 49 violation. The defendant showed reckless disregard for federal law.
The defense attorney rose to cross-examine, insinuating Michael staged the damage. But every question was met with a calm, unshakable response.
I was in the air when the paving started. The weather kept me away. She knew I couldn't stop it.
The defense had no answer. The foreman's admission and the flight logs left no room for doubt. The prosecution rested its case. Jennifer sat rigidly at the defense table, her last hope withering. The weight of the evidence pressed down like a stone. The defense attorney called Jennifer Hawthorne to the stand. She walked forward like a condemned woman.
I do.
The prosecutor asked softly whether she knew the dead man was Harold Hawthorne, her own father-in-law. Jennifer froze. The name hung in the air like a bell she had refused to hear.
Harold? No, that can't. He was just a name on a complaint form. I never checked. Oh God, I never wanted to know who flew those planes. I just wanted the noise to stop. I didn't care about anything else.
The courtroom was dead silent. The jury stared at the weeping woman who had built a monument to her own selfishness. Michael looked away, unable to watch the final collapse of the woman who had destroyed his runway and his peace. Jennifer buried her face in her hands. Her defense had just confessed to negligence louder than any witness. After Jennifer's sobs faded, the judge called for closing arguments. The prosecutor rose, her voice steady. The prosecutor held up the FAA license. This card is proof of a federal right destroyed. In its place, a man died. Harold Hawthorne. The defense attorney spoke last, his plea thin. She didn't mean for this to happen. She just wanted quiet. The judge instructed the jury on Title 49, reckless disregard, and proximate cause. Then the jury filed out. Jennifer sat motionless. The clock on the wall ticked. Less than 3 hours later, the bailiff announced the jury had reached a verdict. Jennifer's hands clenched the table. Her breath came in shallow gasps. In the gallery, Michael leaned forward, his jaw set. Linda Patterson closed her eyes. Judge Ramirez unfolded the paper. The room fell absolutely silent. Jennifer held her breath, the weight of a federal airfield, a dead father-in-law, and a community's fury about to come crashing down. Judge Ramirez read from the form. On the count of reckless endangerment causing death, we find the defendant guilty. On the Title 49 violation, guilty. A sharp cry came from the gallery. Linda Patterson clutched a photograph of her father and wept openly.
Justice. Finally.
The judge ordered Jennifer to rise for sentencing. You will serve 5 years in federal prison, restitution of $250,000 to Mr. Roark for runway restoration. This HOA became a weapon. I urge every homeowner here to remember that regulations are not licenses to harm. Jennifer sagged against the table, the composure she had worn for years evaporating into a silent moan. The bailiff handcuffed her. As she was led away, a man in the back row rose, her ex-husband, who watched without expression. The heavy door of the holding cell echoed through the corridor, the sound of a federal airfield being avenged.
Now the runway can be reborn.
The federal system had spoken, and the ticket was a grass strip rising from the asphalt. Immediately after sentencing, the district attorney filed an emergency motion to dissolve the Hawthorne HOA. The judge signed the order, and the gavel fell for the final time. A week later, the remaining homeowners gathered not to argue, but to vote on dissolution. The motion passed without a single dissenting voice. The HOA's insurance voidance meant no funds for defense, but the court ordered fresh governance. The community chose to govern without an HOA. That afternoon, Michael endorsed the restitution check and called a paving removal contractor. The same crew that once hesitated would now tear up their own work. The foreman returned with jackhammers and heavy machinery. The black scar began to splinter under the drills. Within days, the asphalt was gone, hauled away in dump trucks. The earth underneath was compacted but still alive. Michael walked the bare dirt, envisioning the new runway. Then he started hand-broadcasting grass seed row by row. Neighbors he had never spoken to arrived with rakes and hoses. The community that Jennifer had fractured began to heal itself.
This is how it should have been from the start. Not noise complaints, but helping hands.
By spring, fresh green shoots covered the strip. The new FAA sign was ordered, and the sky above waited for a returning engine. By early summer, the grass had thickened into a flawless green runway. A sturdy new FAA licensed airfield sign stood at the threshold, bright white lettering on fresh wood. Agent Donahue returned, her Navy windbreaker crisp in the morning sun, carrying a clipboard and measuring equipment.
Michael, this looks better than I remembered. Let's see if it measures up to specs.
I rebuilt every inch to FAA standards. Come and check.
She kneeled, probing the soil, checking the turf thickness and drainage. Everything was precisely as required.
It's perfect. Michael, your airstrip is officially relicensed for medical evacuation operations.
After everything, it's really back.
He turned the license over, running his thumb over the embossed seal. The same seal Jennifer Hawthorne had dismissed as decorative. Behind them, the community watched from the fence line and applauded, the sound of a federal right restored. Michael looked up at the sky, and the airstrip was once again open for those who needed it most. A month after recertification, the radio in Michael's hangar barked. A young farmer in cardiac distress needed airlift. The nearest airport was 40 miles away. Michael slammed the hangar door and sprinted to the Cessna. The engine caught on the first try this time. He lifted off, wheels leaving the new grass untouched. The FAA sign flashed in his peripheral vision like a beacon. The flight was 22 minutes. He circled the rural clinic before touching down on a dirt road beside the ambulance. Paramedics loaded the patient, and Michael climbed back in. The return was a straight shot, no diversion. He landed on his own strip, tires humming on the grass. An ambulance waited, back doors already open. The young man was rushed to the hospital. Later, the doctor called. 20 more minutes, and they would have lost him.
This was the difference. A runway that existed when it needed to.
He stood beside his Cessna, watching the ambulance disappear. A life was saved because a grass strip was where it belonged. And the noise complaints that had started it all were silent. Only the sound of life remained. On a late summer morning, the community gathered at the edge of the grass strip. Linda Patterson stepped forward carrying a small bronze plaque.
My father Harold loved this valley. He would be proud this field saves lives now. Thank you, Michael, for not giving up. Justice doesn't bring him back, but it keeps his name alive.
He deserved a runway that could have saved him. Now he has one.
She handed him the plaque. Together they knelt and set it into a stone base beside the FAA sign. The bronze caught the sun, Harold Hawthorne Memorial Field, forever beside the FAA licensed airfield sign. Neighbors came forward with white flowers, laying them around the base. The silence was filled with soft sobs and birdsong. An elderly woman traced Harold's name with a trembling finger. A pilot from the next county saluted. Linda turned and embraced Michael, a long, unspoken thank you in the gesture. The airstrip now held a promise. At the edge of the gathering, the FAA sign stood beside the plaque, two markers of a hard-won peace. A week later, in a federal prison cell, Jennifer Hawthorne sat on a narrow cot, holding a creased envelope that had arrived that morning. The return address was Linda Patterson. The letter began, "I forgive you, Jennifer, but I will never forget." She read the words again, her lips moving silently. The forgiveness was heavier than the sentence.
She forgave me. How can anyone forgive me?
Jennifer folded the letter carefully, pressing it flat against her knee. The paper was already soft from handling. She stood and walked to the small, barred window. Outside, a patch of sky and a distant tree line. A small plane cut across the blue, its engine a faint buzz. She watched until it vanished.
That could have been Harold's flight. If I had just listened.
She closed her eyes, and a single tear tracked down her cheek. The fuchsia windbreaker was long gone, replaced by prison gray. In her quiet cell, the echo of rotor blades became a prayer she would never stop repeating. As dusk settled over the valley, Michael walked across the grass, his silhouette long against the runway. The memorial plaque caught the last light.
This is what we saved, not just dirt and grass, but a promise.
The Cessna lifted softly from the strip, climbing into the golden horizon. Below, the FAA sign and the bronze plaque stood side by side. He circled once, looking down at the green field where Harold's name was written, and beyond it to the community that had reclaimed its soul. A flock of white birds rose from the tree line, scattering like a quiet blessing. The engine hummed a steady note.
Petty noise couldn't silence this. A runway is a lifeline, not a nuisance.
From the ground, the strip was a thin green thread sewn into the earth. From the air, it was a compass pointing toward hope. Michael banked the plane west, the mountains dark against a lavender sky. The last light caught the wings and held. In that quiet cockpit, there was no HOA, no complaint, No asphalt, only the sound of an engine doing what it was built to do. And far below, the grass strip waited for the next call, ready to rise again.